New Moon Part 1. When the fire comes first, Scorpio's baptism by Mars. What if the year doesn't begin with light, but with fire? That's exactly how 2025 begins for Scorpio. Not with clarity, not with comfort, but with confrontation, deep, personal, and fiery. And it's not random. It's Mars. As your ruling planet, Mars is always a key player in your story. But when it begins the year retrograde in your 10th house of career, public status, and life direction, then retreats into your 9th house of belief systems, truth, and higher learning, you're not just facing delays or setbacks. You're facing a full-blown reckoning. Fire the resignation that sparked awakening. Meet Daniel, a Scorpio rising. In late 2024, Daniel stood at the top of his career. He was a senior product manager at a billion-dollar tech firm in Austin. On paper, his life was a success story, but in his heart, he was empty. "I feel like I'm building someone else's empire," he told a friend. January 2nd, 2025, a meeting with upper management. A new executive demanded that Daniel push a rushed product launch that violated user privacy protocols. He refused. They threatened him with demotion. Daniel looked at his team, then at his boss, and with quiet certainty said, "I can't do this anymore." He resigned that same day. That was the moment Mars lit the match and set his life ablaze. Counterclockwise arrows button Mars retrograde, the identity shake-up. Mars retrograde in the 10th house can bring conflicts with bosses, career stagnation, and internal tension about one's life direction. It can expose power struggles and hidden dissatisfaction with how you're perceived by the world. But Mars doesn't stop there. By early January, it retrogrades into your 9th house, shifting the conflict inward to your beliefs, your purpose, and your vision of truth. This is where the real fire begins. Airplanes searching for meaning in strange places. Daniel didn't search for another job. He searched for meaning. He booked a ticket to Peru and disappeared into the Andes Mountains. There, he stayed with a local community, learning about Andean cosmology and living without internet or deadlines. He journaled every day. He meditated under the stars. And slowly, he began to see the cracks in his old belief systems. Mars retrograde in the 9th house doesn't just challenge your outer world. It dismantles the stories you've told yourself. It questions your mentors, your faith, your politics, your purpose. Warning: the warning for Scorpio, April 2025. Between January and April 2025, you may experience conflicts in your career or with authority figures, inner turmoil about your worldview or faith, travel issues or disruptions, tensions with people from different cultures or belief systems. It's tempting to react, to fight, to resist. But Mars retrograde is not about winning arguments. It's about understanding what's worth fighting for and what must be released. Person in lotus position. Buddhist wisdom: when the flame is a teacher. In Buddhism, suffering is not punishment, it's a mirror. When Mars retrogrades through your houses of career and philosophy, it strips away illusions. Illusions of success, illusions of certainty, illusions of control. What remains? Truth. Raw, honest, transformative. The fire that burns also purifies. This is your moment of purification, Scorpio. Not to destroy you, but to burn away what's no longer yours. Pushpin final thought: you were made for depth. If your year is already messy, uncertain, or filled with endings, don't panic. You are not falling apart. You are falling into alignment. Mars is calling you back to your soul's truth. And Scorpio, you've always known the way, beneath the ashes, through the silence, and into the rebirth that awaits. Next track button coming next. Part 2. A journey inward. Beliefs, faith, and the fight for truth. Because once the fire clears, the real questions emerge. What do I believe in? Who am I without the title, the job, the mask? And most importantly, who am I becoming? Milky Way Part 2. A journey inward. Beliefs, faith, and the fight for truth. When the world outside crumbles, it's time to explore the world within. After the eruption that opened 2025, after the career confrontation, the resignation, the burning of bridges, Scorpio is left standing in a vast, unknown landscape. No title, no clear goal, no map, but there's something else rising. A question that refuses to be ignored. What do I truly believe in? Compass entering the 9th house, the realm of truth. As Mars retrogrades into your 9th house, The focus shifts from what you do to why you exist. This is the domain of higher education and spiritual learning, religion, philosophy, and personal ethics, long-distance travel and cultural exchange, the quest for universal truth. But with Mars moving backward, these areas don't open easily. They clash. They shake. They demand revision. Open book the philosophy class that broke her heart. Meet Layla, a Scorpio sun in her final year of law school. She had always seen justice in black and white, right versus wrong, legal versus illegal. But in early 2025, during a class on international ethics, she read a case study that shattered her worldview. It wasn't about law anymore. It was about compassion. I realized I had memorized every statute, but I didn't know how to be human. Mars in the 9th doesn't just push you to question professors. It makes you question the voice in your head you always trusted. It asks you to challenge the beliefs handed to you by family, tradition, or blind loyalty. Crossed towards conflict in the inner temple. During this transit, Scorpio may face spiritual crises, feeling disconnected from old religious paths or spiritual mentors, cultural or political friction, struggling to align personal values with societal norms, intellectual unrest, doubting everything once believed to be true. You may find yourself walking out of churches, deleting news apps, or arguing with people you once agreed with. That's okay. In fact, it's sacred. Mars in the 9th house destroys false idols. It tears down borrowed beliefs. And in their place, you are meant to plant your own truth, something earned, not inherited. Hindu temple, a Buddhist view, the emptiness of belief. In Mahayana Buddhism, there's a teaching called sunyata, or emptiness. It doesn't mean nothing exists. It means nothing has an inherent, fixed identity, not even your beliefs. What you believed at May 18th no longer serve your 38-year-old soul. What your parents taught you in love may now imprison your spirit. Mars, through its retrograde, shows you the difference between loyalty and stagnation. Let go of the raft once you've crossed the river. Airplane the teacher in disguise. Sometimes, your greatest teacher is not a guru, but a confrontation. Daniel, who we met in part 1, found this out the hard way. During a retreat in Peru, a fellow participant mocked his old tech career, calling him part of the machine. Angry, Daniel lashed out, defending everything he thought he had left behind. That night, in silence, he realized, I wasn't angry at her. I was angry that I still needed to defend something I thought I had healed. This is Mars at work. It provokes not to punish, but to reveal. Crystal ball integration. Don't build a new religion. Find your truth. This retrograde isn't about swapping one belief system for another. It's about questioning all of them until what's left is yours. You may enroll in a spiritual course that challenges your mind. Travel and experience a cultural awakening. Discover ancient texts that feel like home. Or simply, sit with silence until a deeper truth rises. The point is not to escape the fire. The point is to understand why it was lit. Person in lotus position. Final lesson. Stillness reveals the sacred. Mars is movement. The 9th house is vision. But sometimes, clarity doesn't come from chasing truth. It comes from sitting still long enough to hear it. Let this retrograde teach you through friction, through paradox, through silence. Because in 2025, Scorpio's truth won't be found in doctrine. It will be found in direct experience. Next track button coming next. Part 3. When the light breaks through. Jupiter's gift of healing and expansion. After Mars sets the stage with disruption and doubt, Jupiter arrives in June, bringing optimism, growth, and a new horizon. We'll explore how this expansive planet helps Scorpio rebuild from the ashes and say yes to something greater than success, meaning. Sunrise Part 3. When the light breaks through. Jupiter's gift of healing and expansion. After every fire, there comes a clearing. And in that clearing, something begins to bloom. If the first half of 2025 feels like a storm, relentless, burning, uncertain, then June arrives like sunlight breaking through clouds. And with that light comes Jupiter, the great teacher, entering Scorpio's 9th house. But this isn't just about travel or learning. This is about faith restored, hope rekindled, and a vision of the future that actually feels worth chasing. Because Scorpio, you've done the work. You've stripped away the false. You've confronted the void. Now, the cosmos responds, not with chaos, but with grace. Globe showing Europe, Africa, Jupiter in the ninth house, a new horizon. From June 2025 through June 2026, Jupiter will move through your ninth house, the very space Mars recently stirred into confusion. Where Mars brought conflict, Jupiter brings clarity. Where Mars exposed cracks, Jupiter lays foundations. This is a time when you may feel deeply drawn to study or return to school, inspired to travel, not to escape, but to discover, open to new spiritual ideas or reconnecting with old wisdom, ready to forgive the past and step into growth. Airplane, the journey that changed her life. Layla, whom we met in part 2, didn't abandon her legal career after her existential crisis, but she did change the way she practiced law. In June, she took a short course in restorative justice in Copenhagen. What began as an academic interest became a life calling. For the first time, I felt like law could heal instead of punish. That's the essence of Jupiter, not destruction, but elevation. Unlocked when the mind opens, the heart follows. Jupiter isn't just about learning, it's about wisdom. The kind you can't memorize. The kind you feel in your bones. And for Scorpio, this is a rare chance to become the healer, the teacher, the sage. You may publish something that expresses your soul. Mentor others based on hard-earned experience. Find a spiritual community that finally feels like home. Or begin a pilgrimage, not to find God, but to meet yourself again. Man in lotus position, a Buddhist lens, the middle way revealed. In Buddhism, Jupiter reflects the middle way, the path of balance between indulgence and asceticism, between control and surrender. Where Mars forced Scorpio to confront pain, Jupiter now teaches you to integrate it. Pain becomes wisdom when it is held with compassion. Jupiter invites you to accept the past without bitterness and to envision the future without fear. Graduation cap, why this is the time to say yes. If someone offers you a scholarship, say yes. If an opportunity to travel appears, say yes. If your heart nudges you to enroll in a course, apply for that visa, or join that retreat, say yes. Because this window, from June 2025 to June 2026, is a cosmic green light. Not reckless expansion, but soul expansion. And Scorpio, after walking through fire, you've earned your wings. Compass, Jupiter, and career, planting seeds for 2026. There's a bonus to this transit. Jupiter is preparing your 10th house for a massive career blessing that will arrive in the second half of 2026. So everything you learn now, every step of growth you embrace, will directly shape the next level of your public success. It's like tilling the soil before the harvest. And Scorpio, this soil is sacred. Sparkles, closing reflection, faith after fire. Faith doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from surviving it, and still choosing to believe in beauty, in purpose, in the road ahead. Jupiter won't erase the scars Mars left, but it will show you why they mattered. Next track button coming next. Part 4, A Body in Focus. Eclipses and the wake-up call of health. Because just as your soul begins to fly, the body calls out for attention. In Part 4, we'll explore the final eclipse in your 6th house. How work, health, and daily rhythm become the next sacred battleground for Scorpio. Stethoscope Part 4, A Body in Focus. Eclipses and the wake-up call of health. You've healed your mind. You've opened your soul. But what about your body? After the spiritual expansion brought by Jupiter, there comes a whisper from within, quieter, but urgent. It is not your thoughts. It is not your beliefs. It is your body. And when Scorpio ignores the body, it doesn't whisper for long. It screams. Waning crescent moon, the final eclipse in the 6th house. In March or April 2025, a solar eclipse in Aries occurs in your 6th house, the domain of work and service, daily routines, physical health and healing, boundaries of the body and energy. This eclipse isn't sudden. It's the final wave in a series that's been reshaping this part of your life over the past 12 months. Think back. Did your work change drastically in the past year? Were there shifts in your physical health, energy levels, or routines? Have you been overworking, overgiving, or burning out? This eclipse marks the end of a cycle, but also the beginning of a demand. You must build a life that your body can survive. The diagnosis that saved her. Let's return to Layla, our Scorpio sun. Just as Jupiter entered her 9th house, she felt better spiritually than ever. But her body began to collapse, fatigue, migraines, insomnia. She ignored it. The eclipse arrived in April. She fainted after a 14-hour day. Diagnosis? Adrenal fatigue. The wake-up call was brutal, but divine. She took medical leave, quit caffeine, changed her schedule, and for the first time in years, she asked her body, "What do you need?" Brain. The sixth house is not just about work. Yes, it rules jobs, but more deeply, it governs how you serve others and how much of yourself you lose in the process. How you treat your vessel, your only home in this life. Whether your routine nourishes you or drains you. Scorpio, you've always been strong. Too strong. You endure, you push, you hide pain like a badge of honor. But this eclipse is not impressed by endurance. It's asking for balance. Hindu temple. A Buddhist perspective, the body is temple. In many Buddhist traditions, the body is not rejected. It is revered as a vehicle for awakening. One story tells of the Buddha, before enlightenment, starving himself in pursuit of purity. Eventually, he collapsed on the riverbank. A young woman offered him milk and rice. He realized, enlightenment does not come from punishment. It comes from balance, from care, from compassion toward the body. This eclipse is your bowl of rice, Scorpio. Will you accept it? Briefcase. Work life under the microscope. You may experience changes such as leaving a toxic work environment, renegotiating your role or hours, changing industries to align with your energy and truth, hiring help or setting better boundaries in your workspace. Some Scorpios will begin managing others for the first time. Others may shift to freelance or slow down after burnout. The question is not, what do I do? It's, can I still live while doing it? Adhesive bandage. The new wellness. Forget green juices and yoga apps, unless they work for you. Wellness, in this context, means alignment. Sleep that is sacred. Food that respects your biology. Boundaries that protect your nervous system. Movement that honors, not punishes, your body. Person in lotus position. Final reflection. Your body is not a machine. It is a messenger, a mirror, a mystery. This eclipse is your reminder that you cannot transcend what you refuse to tend. You've done the soul work. Now do the somatic work. Not to be perfect, but to be whole. Next track button coming next. Part 5, the push and the pull. Saturn versus Neptune in the house of duty. In Part 5, we'll explore a powerful tension. Saturn enters your sixth house to demand discipline and realism, while Neptune enters to blur the lines. What happens when structure meets surrender, when order clashes with dreams? Balance scale. Part 5, the push and the pull. Saturn versus Neptune in the house of duty. What happens when your soul whispers rest, but your schedule screams responsibility? For Scorpio, the middle of 2025 is like standing at a spiritual crossroads, except the signs are blurred and the road keeps splitting. That's what happens when Saturn and Neptune both enter your sixth house of work, health, and daily rhythms. This is no ordinary transit. This is a paradox written in the stars. Saturn builds, Neptune dissolves. One says discipline, the other says dream. And Scorpio must learn to live between them. Saturn enters the sixth house, structure awakens. In June 2025, Saturn, planet of time, effort, karma, makes its first entrance into your sixth house. Its message is blunt, but clear. What's not working must be restructured. What's unsustainable must be stabilized. What's chaotic must be cleaned up. This might manifest as a medical diagnosis forcing you to adopt a new health regimen, a new job with tighter demands and expectations, feeling the weight of responsibility, especially if you manage others or care for loved ones. But here's the truth. Saturn is not punishing you. It is maturing you. And Scorpio, you're ready. Fog. Neptune enters the sixth house, the blur of boundaries. Almost simultaneously, Neptune enters the same house. But where Saturn defines, Neptune dissolves. With Neptune here, you may feel confused about your work purpose, experience fatigue, fog, or vague health issues, struggle to separate service from self-sacrifice, seek escape in fantasy, addictions, or overwork. It's like trying to build a house during a dream. The hammer is real, but the nails disappear. Crossed swords when reality fights reverie. This creates a spiritual contradiction. Saturn, show up every day. Eat better. Be responsible. Neptune, you're tired. Meditate. Trust the flow. Scorpio, torn in the middle, craving clarity. This internal war can lead to burnout or breakthrough. The key is not choosing one over the other. It's learning the art of sacred scheduling. Structure creates space for spirit. Person in lotus position, a Buddhist insight, the dance of form and emptiness. In Buddhist philosophy, reality is seen through the duality of form and emptiness. Form is Saturn, order, action, ritual, structure. Emptiness is Neptune, formlessness, intuition, surrender. Scorpio is now called to hold both truths at once. Can you create a sacred routine that includes both deadlines and deep breaths? Can your daily life become a meditation in motion? The sixth house asks not just what do you do each day, but how do you live your day as a spiritual offering? Prayer beads a story of sacred compromise. Daniel, the Scorpio rising from earlier parts, landed a freelance contract in July. It paid well, but the hours were brutal. Saturn demanded professionalism. Neptune whispered escape. At first, he resisted. Then he adapted. He started waking at 6 a.m. From 6 to 8, meditation, journaling, cold shower. At 8, he began work. That ritual grounded him. It gave Neptune a place to rest and Saturn a place to work. Once I respected my time, both parts of me could breathe. Woman in lotus position integration, building rhythms that don't break you. This transit is your chance to create healthy boundaries at work. Develop a routine of mindful rituals. Say yes to discipline, but no to punishment. Honor your dreams, but hold them in structured hands. This is not a season to run from responsibility, but neither is it a time to abandon rest. Sparkle's final reflection. You are both the builder and the dreamer. You are not weak for needing rest. You are not lost for craving structure. You are evolving into a version of Scorpio that can hold contradiction with grace. Let Saturn teach your hands. Let Neptune teach your heart. And let the balance teach your soul. Next track button coming next. Part 6, Matters of the Heart. Venus retrograde and the return of the past. As Scorpio learns to balance discipline and surrender, the past will come knocking. In Part 6, we'll explore Venus retrograde as it moves from your 6th to your 5th house, stirring old love, creative awakenings, and the fine line between work and desire. Broken Heart Part 6, Matters of the Heart, Venus retrograde, and the return of the past. Not every love returns to stay. Some return to show you what you've healed and what you haven't. Just as Scorpio is learning to balance structure and surrender, a different kind of echo rises, not from work or health, but from the heart. In mid-2025, Venus stations retrograde, beginning in your 6th house of daily life and service, then drifting back into your 5th house of love, pleasure, creativity, and joy. And with it comes a familiar sensation, a name, a memory, a heartbeat you thought had gone silent. Tornado, what Venus retrograde brings. When Venus moves backward, it unearths what was buried. Love stories, friendships, artistic dreams, abandoned desires. In the 5th and 6th houses, this can manifest as an old lover returning, a creative passion reigniting, a blurry line between work and romance. Deep questions about what brings you joy and whether you've been neglecting it. Red Heart, the email she never expected. Layla, our Scorpio sun, had long buried the heartbreak of her college partner, Isabel. Years had passed. New relationships had come and gone. But when Venus stationed retrograde, Layla received an email. I don't want to start again. I just need you to know I'm sorry. It wasn't a romantic reawakening. It was a soul-level reckoning. They met for tea. No tears. No anger. Just truth. And closure. Layla went home that evening and picked up her old sketchbook for the first time in 8 years. That's Venus retrograde in the 5th house. It doesn't always bring someone back to stay, but it always brings something back to feel. Performing arts, the forgotten artist within. The 5th house isn't just about romance. It's about expression, play, and creativity. During this Venus retrograde, Scorpio may reconnect with a creative talent left behind. Question whether you've been trading passion for productivity. Experience a desire to write, sing, paint, dance, or simply feel more alive. This is your reminder. You were not born only to survive. You were born to create. Heart with arrow, work, romance, and the blurred line. Because this retrograde begins in the 6th house, some of you may develop feelings for someone in your workplace. Reevaluate a relationship that grew out of service or support. Feel torn between duty and desire. Scorpio, be careful. What begins as chemistry may end as confusion. But don't ignore it either, because sometimes passion reveals what structure has suppressed. Ask yourself, am I craving love or escape? Person in lotus position, a Buddhist reflection, love as a mirror, not a possession. In Buddhist thought, true love is not about holding, it's about freeing. It's about seeing clearly, not projecting fantasy. During Venus retrograde, illusions may crumble, romantic attachments may resurface, but healing only comes if you see what love taught you, not just who gave it. This is a time to reflect, not to rush. A time to honor the role someone played, without needing them to play it again. Counterclockwise arrows button, do you rekindle or release? Not every ex returns for a new chapter. Sometimes they return so you can close the book with grace. Venus retrograde asks, can you love without needing to own? Can you revisit the past without losing your present? Can you trust that pleasure, too, is spiritual? Final reflection, the heart is a compass. Scorpio, you've rebuilt your mind. You've honored your body. Now your heart speaks. It doesn't always speak clearly, but it always speaks truth, if you're willing to listen without clinging. Let this Venus retrograde show you what's worth reviving, what's worth releasing, and what kind of joy you're truly ready to allow back in. Next track button coming next. Part 7, Children, Creativity, and Closure. The eclipses strike again. In Part 7, the eclipses return, this time in your 5th and 11th houses, marking major shifts in romance, children, friendships, and creative identity. What ends may surprise you. What begins may transform your destiny. New Moon Part 7, Children, Creativity, and Closure. The eclipses strike again. Some endings aren't failures. They're full stops, so you can begin a new sentence. As the dust settles from Venus retrograde, Scorpio begins to feel a deeper shift, not inside, but around you. Your relationships, your creative identity, your sense of connection to others, all begin to move, shake, fade, ignite. That's when the eclipses hit. This time, in Virgo and Pisces, activating your 5th and 11th houses. And Scorpio, you are not meant to hold everything anymore. Waning crescent moon, the meaning of eclipses, endings and beginnings. Eclipses aren't gentle nudges. They're cosmic earthquakes, clearing what's over, planting what's next. In your 5th house, Pisces, and 11th house, Virgo, eclipses impact romance and children, creative projects and self-expression, friendships and social circles, dreams for the future. This isn't theoretical. This is a reshaping of your world. Broken heart, the relationship that had to end. Daniel, our Scorpio rising, had been dating someone new since spring. It started light, playful, but something shifted. By fall, he realized it wasn't love, it was distraction. The eclipse in his 5th house hit in September. They broke up the next day. There were no fights, just silence, and the knowing. Later, Daniel would say, I wasn't heartbroken. I was relieved, because I finally stopped pretending. This is what eclipses in the 5th house do. They end illusions, so your heart can be free. Performing arts, your creativity is evolving. For many Scorpios, this period will also awaken a creative crisis or rebirth. You may let go of a project you once loved but no longer align with. Return to an art form you abandoned. Launch something new that reflects your current soul, not your past one. The 5th house rules what you create from the heart. This isn't about productivity. It's about sacred expression. Ask yourself, am I still expressing or just producing? Baby, children, and the shift of focus. If you have children, this eclipse season could mark a major milestone, graduation, moving out, first heartbreak, a change in your relationship dynamic, even the birth of a new soul into your life. If you don't have children, this could reflect a creative child, a project, a legacy, something you nurture and protect. Whatever form it takes, the message is clear. Something ends, so something more aligned can begin. People holding hands, the 11th house. Friendships are rewritten. While your personal heart is shifting, your outer circle is too. Eclipses in the 11th house often trigger endings of long-standing friendships, leaving a social group or organization, realizing some connections were never soul-aligned. This isn't betrayal. It's clarity, and it opens the door for new communities, aligned collaborations, and spiritual kinship. Person in lotus position, Buddhist insight. Impermanence is not loss, it's liberation. In Buddhism, all things are impermanent. Clinging creates suffering. These eclipses are here to release what you cling to. The old friendship you've outgrown. The lover whose presence now feels heavy. The creative identity that no longer inspires you. This isn't punishment. This is freedom through surrender. Compass how to navigate this season. Don't resist the endings. Don't chase what fades. Don't fear the space that's opening up. Instead, reflect on what's truly authentic. Create with no goal but honesty. Welcome new people with open curiosity, not old expectations. Sparkle's final reflection. You are allowed to outgrow your old life. Not all friendships are forever. Not all passions are permanent. Not all dreams were meant to last a lifetime. Let this eclipse season close the chapter for you. And then, Scorpio, with all the courage you've earned, begin again. Next track button coming next. Part 8, The Circle of Friends, Community, Loss, and New Connections. In Part 8, we'll dive deeper into the 11th house journey. How Scorpio navigates friendship loss, finds soul-aligned community, and begins building a new collective identity rooted in truth. Part 8, The Circle of Friends, Community, Loss, and New Connections. Sometimes, losing a friend is not betrayal. It's spiritual alignment catching up. By the final quarter of 2025, Scorpio will likely feel it in a way that can't be ignored anymore. The silence between you and certain people has grown too wide to cross. No fights, no explosions, just distance. It's not about drama, it's about growth. And now, with the eclipses activating your 11th house of friendships and community, the universe asks you directly, who are your people now? First quarter moon, when the tribe no longer speaks your language. The 11th house governs friendships and social networks, communities and alliances, collective goals and shared visions, hope for the future. When eclipses land here, they bring revelations like, I don't belong in this group anymore. We used to share dreams. Now we share nothing but memories. Their presence drains me more than it fills me. Broken heart of friendship Daniel had to mourn. Daniel, our Scorpio rising, had a best friend since college. They had traveled the world, launched businesses, and cried through breakups together. But in 2025, something shifted. Daniel's spiritual awakening, triggered by Jupiter, deepened by eclipses, made conversations feel forced. One evening, during a dinner, his friend joked about his new meditative lifestyle. Daniel laughed politely, but something inside broke. They didn't argue. They just stopped calling each other. It hurt like hell, he said, but I finally understood. We were walking different paths. Handshake while letting go hurts and heals. Scorpio is loyal to the core. Even when something no longer fits, you hold on. Because you remember what it used to be. But this eclipse asks, are you remaining out of love or fear of being alone? Are you loyal to the bond or the memory? Letting go isn't abandonment. It's respect for them and for your own evolution. Man in lotus position Buddhist teaching, the Sangha and spiritual belonging. In Buddhism, there's a sacred word, Sangha, meaning spiritual community. Your Sangha is not always the loudest crowd. It's the people who reflect your truth, who support your liberation, not your limitation. This is the time to leave communities that no longer nourish your soul. Seek like-minded allies, people who speak your inner language. Build new bonds based not on shared history, but shared presence. Seedling how new friendships form in 2025. As the old dissolves, you'll notice serendipitous meetings, conversations that spark joy again, invitations to events, groups, or spiritual spaces that feel safe and electric. Say yes to these. Scorpio, this is not a season of loneliness, but of spiritual sorting. You're being moved into alignment with your next soul tribe. Speech balloon the power of saying goodbye. You don't have to make a scene. You don't have to explain your growth to those who can't feel it. You can say, I love who we were. I wish you well on your journey. But I'm walking another way now. Release them without resentment. That's the highest form of loyalty. Sparkle's final reflection. You are not alone. You're becoming aligned. This part of the year may feel like loss, but it's actually the arrival of space for new people, new purpose, and new peace. And Scorpio, once you stop performing in the wrong circle, you'll find the one where your soul doesn't need to explain itself. Next track button coming next. Part 9, Shared Wealth, Sudden Turns. Uranus moves to the 8th house. Just as you settle into your new community, another shift begins. Uranus enters your 8th house, shaking up shared resources, intimacy, and financial destiny. In Part 9, we'll explore how Scorpio can ride the waves of sudden change and come out wealthier, not just in money, but in truth. High Voltage Part 9, Shared Wealth, Sudden Turns. Uranus moves to the 8th house. Sometimes, the biggest breakthroughs come from what you never saw coming. As 2025 enters its final phase, another massive shift begins. It's not emotional like Venus, not social like the eclipses. It's deeper, quieter, but far more destabilizing. In July 2025, Uranus, the planet of revolution and sudden change, begins its first steps into Scorpio's 8th house, the realm of shared resources, power, intimacy, and the unknown. Scorpio, this is your territory. But Uranus? Uranus doesn't ask permission. Cyclone what the 8th house governs. This is one of the most mysterious zones in astrology. The 8th house speaks of merging resources, marriage, business, inheritance, debt, taxes, insurance, hidden finances, sexual intimacy, and psychological vulnerability, death, rebirth, transformation. When Uranus enters this domain, he brings disruption, liberation, innovation, and shock. This is the realm of things we fear to lose and must learn to surrender. Money with wings, the inheritance Daniel never saw coming. In October 2025, Daniel received a letter. His estranged uncle, whom he barely knew, had passed away and left him an old property outside Santa Fe. No money, just a dusty adobe house with cracked walls and a mango tree. He almost sold it, but something stopped him. He visited and found peace. He turned it into a retreat space for creatives, combining solitude, purpose, and legacy. Uranus in the 8th doesn't always give cash. Sometimes, it gives meaning disguised as disruption, broken heart intimacy, power, and the desire to control. This transit also touches deep emotional ties. You may suddenly break away from a toxic entanglement, discover a secret about a partner's finances, or be forced to open up in ways you've never allowed before. Scorpio likes control, but Uranus says, let go, or be ripped free. You might ask, can I be this vulnerable? Can I share power without losing myself? Can I trust, even when there are no guarantees? Uranus says, it's time to find out. Brain innovation in finance and legacy. This is also a great time to explore cryptocurrency, fintech, or unconventional investments. Build a legacy plan based on freedom, not just accumulation. Clear old debts, emotional and financial. Think of this as your financial awakening. Not just about money, but about how you share, merge, and let go. Person in lotus position. Buddhist insight. Non-attachment is the ultimate wealth. In Buddhism, the 8th house themes relate to the wisdom of impermanence and non-attachment. All things we cling to eventually slip through our fingers. But in letting go, we realize nothing was ever truly ours. And that is liberation. This transit teaches, do not fear loss. Do not hoard control. Trust the flow, even when it dismantles what you built. You cannot evolve while gripping the past. Old key: how to navigate Uranus in the 8th. Be flexible with finances. Expect surprises, but prepare for opportunity. Don't resist endings. They may be doorways. Embrace innovation, new ways of earning, sharing, or investing. Let go of outdated definitions of intimacy and power. Uranus isn't just shaking things up. He's freeing you from what you no longer need, even if you thought you couldn't live without it. Sparkle's final reflection: let what falls fall. Scorpio, this is where you lose the illusion of control and find the real source of power. Trust, surrender, and the courage to start again. What falls away under Uranus was never meant to stay. What stays after Uranus? That's your truth. Next track button coming next. Part 10, Scorpio's evolution. From chaos to clarity in 2025. In the final chapter, we tie it all together. From Mars to Jupiter, eclipses to Uranus. How 2025 shapes Scorpio into a more powerful, grounded, spiritually aligned version of yourself than ever before. Scorpion Part 10, Scorpio's evolution. From chaos to clarity in 2025. You didn't just survive the storm. You became the sky beyond it. By the end of 2025, Scorpio stands transformed. Not because everything got easier, but because everything that wasn't real fell away. This wasn't a year of surface changes. It was a soul surgery. One planetary lesson after another. One inner death and rebirth at a time. This is the year you stopped pretending and started remembering who you really are. Fire. It began with fire, Mars in retrograde. The year opened not with celebration, but confrontation. Career, identity, beliefs, all thrown into question. You burned bridges, not out of anger, but out of truth. That fire cleared the space for something greater. Milky Way. Then came the inward journey, belief, doubt, and rebuilding. Mars led you into your ninth house, forcing you to strip away borrowed ideologies. You wrestled with faith. You sat with silence. You questioned everything and found your own voice in the void. And that voice, it became your new compass. Sun with face. Light broke through Jupiter's healing gift. When Jupiter entered your ninth house mid-year, things finally softened. Travel, wisdom, new teachers, and spiritual clarity arrived. The doors you thought Mars had slammed shut, Jupiter reopened them, but on your terms. You didn't return to the old world. You discovered a new one. Stethoscope. The body spoke, eclipse in the sixth house. Just as your soul awakened, your body called out. Fatigue, illness, routine collapse. You were forced to confront how little care you had given your own vessel. But you listened. You adjusted. You remembered that enlightenment requires a body that can carry it. Balance scale. Saturn and Neptune, discipline versus surrender. Mid-year brought the inner war. Saturn said, structure. Neptune said, trust. You learned that discipline isn't the enemy of flow, it's its container. Through rituals and surrender, you created a daily life that felt like devotion. Heart with arrow. The return of the past, Venus retrograde. A lover, a passion, a dream long buried. They returned not to stay, but to reflect. You healed. You released. You reawakened your joy. And for the first time, you loved yourself without needing permission. New moon eclipses in the 5th and 11th. Love, friendship, and closure. This was the chapter of goodbyes. You outgrew relationships that no longer spoke your language. You mourned friendships without blame. But in the space left behind, new souls emerged. Ones who saw you as you are now, not as you were. High voltage. Uranus shifts it all. Money, intimacy, power. Late 2025 shook your financial and emotional foundation. You faced losses, surprises, awakenings. But you learned, true power isn't in control. It's in the freedom to release. You started building wealth not just of money, but of meaning. Person in lotus position. The final lesson, you were never broken. 2025 didn't break you. It uncovered you. Every planet, every retrograde, every eclipse played a role in stripping away what no longer fit. The job that drained you. The belief that blinded you. The friend that forgot you. The pain you pretended wasn't there. And what's left? A Scorpio who knows what they believe, what they deserve, what they were born to transform. Rainbow. The path ahead. The lessons of 2025 prepare you for something greater. Jupiter enters your 10th house in 2026, bringing blessings to your career. Saturn solidifies new habits. Uranus revolutionizes your wealth and emotional freedom. And you, Scorpio, walk into the next chapter not as a survivor, but as a spiritual architect of your own becoming. Dove. Final reflection. You are the phoenix, always. There is a reason Scorpio is ruled by the symbols of the scorpion, the eagle, and the phoenix. In 2025, you lived all three. You stung to protect. You soared to gain perspective. And in the end, you burned and rose again. The path was never meant to be easy. It was meant to be true. And now it is. Folded hands. From the path to Buddhist wisdom, a blessing. May your losses lead you home. May your pain awaken purpose. May your rebirth be gentle and full of grace. Directed call to action, spoken from the heart. If this video stirred something in you, if you recognized yourself in these words, or you simply admire the unstoppable force of Scorpio energy, then let's keep going deeper together. Glowing star. Subscribe to this channel, The Path to Buddhist Wisdom, because here, we don't just talk about astrology. We awaken ancient truths. We merge mysticism with mastery. And we honor every soul's path to greatness. Hit that bell. Leave a comment. And remember, the most powerful journey is the one within.